I'm not only your in-house yoga teacher, but also the moderator of this session. And I'm really looking forward to it. So the session is about data innovations, communication, and link to policy. We are going to have 5 presentations of 8 minutes. Then we are going to take some questions, and then we will continue with the lightning talk, also very interesting topics. So for some of you, if you haven't been here yesterday, my name is Agnes Setesche, and I work for the Statistical Office of Denmark. So, and I invite the first speaker to the stage, who is Jukka Hoffman from Statistics Finland. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, now. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So my name is Jukka Hoffman. I come from Statistics Finland, and my perspective to this issue using key indicators in SDG communication is solely from the perspective of National Statistical Institute. Keep that in mind. So some background information. As we all probably know, we have a huge number of SDG indicators, something like 247 officially. But taking into account all the disaggregations, at least in our database, we have almost 1,000 different indicators. And provided that the UN custodian agencies want even further disaggregations, we will have even more indicators. So there is so many indicators that normally the policymakers really don't understand, or saying more correctly, they don't bother to study the data. And that's a problem. Also, we have some problems that these indicators, they don't describe the actual sustainable development, for example, in our country, Finland, properly. They surpass many aspects of climate change and the loss of biodiversity. So they are in improper measures. Which leads us to the actual point. Search for SDG key indicators. In Finland, you have to remember that the Prime Minister office is the sole owner of the whole Agenda 2030 process, sustainable development. The individual ministries, they have nothing to say it. The only independent body doing the monitoring is Statistics Finland. And there is some kind of firewall between us, so they can't say what kind of numbers we are producing. But in fact, we are in cooperation almost weekly, in many times daily basis. We have a lot of SDG data nowadays for 180 SDG indicators. Now, beside the Prime Minister's office expertise, they also want some scientific guidance to issues related to sustainable development. And that's why they have nominated this sustainability expert panel consisting of prominent science professors, academics, very wise men and women. There are 14 of them, and they represent independently their own expertise. The idea of the experts panel has been select from the existing data some indicators that would better communicate the development of sustainable development to policymakers. And the idea has not been develop any completely new metrics, but use the existing data. They are very keen to communicate the overall sustainability issues to policymakers. The case is that we don't have any beyond GDP measures at the moment, but there is a desire for such indicators. And they started this work last year. And because they don't want to touch the data. They, of course, turned over to me and asked me to make a preliminary shortlist what kind of indicators could be used as a key indicators. The idea was that there are three domains in sustainable development: economic, social, and ecological, and every category should have their own indicators. And we also had this idea that we should have a complete time series starting from 1990 up to today in order to be selected. And this was the first shortlist we had. After that, what came through that I drew up several graphical presentations how these data behave. And the science expert panel, they reviewed all these figures in their own meetings. And finally, they came up with the suggestion that this is the proposal, what they propose to be used as a overall sustainability measures. So ecological sustainability, there is the material blueprint. It is also selected as the main indicator. And also final energy consumption, greenhouse gas emissions, social sustainability, there is the share of the poor, mortality rate of the children under 5 years of age, suicide mortality rate, and young people outside education, work, and training. And economic sustainability, you can't really surpass the position of GDP or leaving it out, so it has to be included to these measures. Besides that, income inequalities measured by Gini coefficient are to be reviewed, as is the employment rate. Thinking about this in graphical forms, I always love to draw these pictures. This is what came out. Of course, this is too much for the policymakers, too many indicators, different trends. So the idea was that there are three primary indicators that could be used. Now the case is that, of course, these are incomparable issues, so we had to index them by using the 1990 as a 100 and then seeing how they are progressing. Some further considerations there have been. Is it good that the curves are growing? If the share of the poor is growing, that of course is not good. But well, we have been taught that everything that grows, that's good for us. But actually that's not. And that's the issue we are still considering. What is the best way of presenting this data? So what has happened since? These proposals were made last May, and they were presented to world's largest ecological research conference in the summer. They were also presented to Finnish National Commission Sustainable Development, as well to Prime Minister, who is responsible for the sustainable development process. And now they entered to a Finnish Parliament. Finnish Parliament has this kind of committee for the future, consisting 17 members of Parliament, and they are preparing a report if they should be used in all communications by government authorities when reporting the progress of national sustainable development in the future. So this is still one thing pending, what will happen. And finally, it's good to remember the target 17.19 that calls for new measures of overall sustainable development beyond GDP indicators. These indicators, they are not intended to replace this idea, but to cover the gap between the UN standardized international measures are to be taken into use. So this is a temporary solution to provide the policymakers key indicator data that is existing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jukka. We will take questions after the first 5 presentations. So And we are a little bit behind, so let's invite Omar once again. He's going to talk about data innovations for the SDGs.
Thank you very much. I must admit that Ghana developed a roadmap around monitoring of the SDGs in 2017, following when IAEG, approved the first list of indicators in March 2016. We did an assessment to monitor to assess the capacity of the country in monitoring the SDGs. And that led us to the conclusion that we need to do something different from what we have usually been doing if we can monitor the SDGs. Initially, we started in 2018 in our baseline report with 63 indicators. When we went for our first VNR in 2019, we had 73 indicators. In 2022, when we did our second VNR, we had 102 indicators. 2025, we're going for our third VNR, and hopefully we should have up to 140 indicators. And that basically is because we have sought to leverage non-traditional data sources to monitor some of the SDGs. So we're looking at SDG 14, using geospatial information to monitor SDG 1, especially MPI, using machine learning to scrape data from PDFs to produce some measurements for SDG 4, among others. So the first thing we did for SDG 14.11b was to leverage on data already produced by civil society during the beach cleanups, which is available in a platform under the Oceans Conservancy. And we use this, UNEP thankfully had already developed the methodology for using citizen science to monitor this SDG indicator. And we did that in 2021. So there was a lot of engagement around this particular work. And so in 2023, we published the process we use in developing this indicator and published it in the Sustainability Science Journal. And I was surprised 2 months ago, they reached out to us to say that our paper was the best paper in 2023, which means that the process that we have put forward in this article is something that can be replicated by other countries. And that is the first thing and that is the only way we're able to measure SDG 14.11b in Ghana. The second thing has been some work we started with MIT and with support from NASA in 2018 to monitor illegal gold mining in Ghana and the growth of artisanal mining. Following the success of that, we published some kind of papers on that. Then we decided to delve deeper to see if we can use this same platform to monitor SDG Goal 15. And as we speak now, we have been able to develop a system for monitoring SDG 15.11, 15.12, and 15.41. And so in Ghana's next VNR in 2025, you would see Ghana providing information on how we have fared in the last 10 years on this particular indicator. The next one has to do with multidimensional poverty. This morning, Ofi already spoke about it. And what we did differently in this time around is to leverage geospatial information to monitor multidimensional poverty across the entire country, and where we can provide. Ghana has 16 regions. We went beyond the 16 regions to provide this at the local government level. We have 261 local governments, and we have used geospatial information to provide information on MPI for all. And what is more striking, which has received a lot of commendation and action actually, is our ability to use that in providing a 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer grid of the entire country, to identify in this particular district, for instance, if you say that the MPI in this district is that, which particular areas within that district have more poor people and what is the actual number of persons and the percentage of poor people. And so this provided an opportunity for the local governments to target interventions. 2 weeks ago, I had an engagement with the chief executive of one such MMDAs. And what he told me is that because of this, they have realized that health insurance was what drew them back. And so they had to work with other adjoining districts to get health insurance commission to come and register the population within their districts to provide them health insurance. And I think this is the kind of actionable data I talk about. Then the next thing is we use machine learning to scrape data that has been in PDF for over 20 years. And this report, I'll be launching it on the 18th of November to show that while access to education is increasing in Ghana, the quality of education is actually not improving. And so this is a report that will be out soon. Now, more importantly, we've already spoken about the citizens' data. We have had a lot of experiences with this, and I want to focus only on one of them, which is the one on public services satisfaction, which is SDG indicator 16.6.2, which we recently implemented with UNDP. What is instructive about this is in 2019, we had already done a nationally representative sample survey using on the same indicator. So when we recently used the citizen science approach to measure it, we decided to do a comparison of the results to understand whether these are somehow comparable. And it's very important. I will just mention only the one on government ID system. In the 2019 work, the most sought after government ID was the national identification card, which was being rolled out at the time. In the recent work, the most sought after national ID is the Ghanaian passport. And people are frustrated about the processes of even getting the passport. People are frustrated about not treating people equally. People frustrated about the cost involved. And to that extent, when we put this out, I cannot connect it directly, but I would want to believe. Recently, a week ago, there was an announcement by the Minister of Foreign Affairs that people who are applying for passport within the last 2 years should come to some specific locations to pick them up. And the Minister of Foreign Affairs is also streamlining the processes to ensure that the passports are easily accessible to people. So one of the key things I would want us to look at is this is an opportunity for countries, especially those of us in Africa, where a lot of problems are faced by the continent because there's a disconnect between the people and the politicians. Citizens' data provide us a great opportunity for national statistical offices to put forward what people think and what people's expectations are so that the political class would appreciate. And this is the only way, because conducting sample surveys is very expensive, but this would be an easy way. And that's why I would want to make a plea to the IAEG. Yesterday I saw on the list that SDG 1662, 522 are some of the candidate SDGs that you are not getting a lot of data on. I think we need to rethink it for the fact that Africa is one continent that we are having a lot of coup d'etats. And it's purely because citizens feel that politicians don't hear them. If citizens' data can provide a connection for politicians to hear the citizens, there is an opportunity for politicians to act on what citizens. So I think we need to look at this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Omar. It's very impressed, and I could see the IAEG chairs were nodding, so your message has been heard. We will go on with the use of mobile data for the SDGs, a presentation from Esperanza Makpate from the ITU. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I skipped one presentation. So, quality of life initiative, right?
Great, thank you. And I'm going to start by apologizing. I might have made eye contact with a few of you during the yoga, and I've been told by a former yoga instructor that that's not allowed. So my apologies. So I'm here on behalf of the Quality of Life Initiative, which is a wider initiative in general. But more specifically, I wanted to speak to you on the Quality of Life Index, which is a new tool that we're developing at the moment. So the idea behind the Quality of Life Index is it's a decision support tool for local governments to be able to better take the pulse of their communities and be able to respond to the needs of their inhabitants through a quality of life perspective. And one of the early realizations of this initiative was that if quality of life means different things to different people, how is it that we can create a tool at the global level that is also applicable in different contexts around the world? And our workaround for that was to come up with an index that has two layers to it. A global layer that captures those aspects of quality of life that are universal, meaning that no matter where we are in the world, we are able to capture things that value the most to people, things like safety, health, and so on, but also having another layer of indicators that the cities can define on their own to really capture their own values, priorities, and cultural and contextual nuances. And when you bring these two layers together, you really get a bespoke index for each and every community. And we've organized this around the Global Urban Monitoring Framework, which was endorsed by the Statistical Commission in 2022, which is really a framework to harmonize data collection at the local level. So any city that's already working with an indicator initiative should be able to just take their indicators from that and be able to plug it into the Urban Monitoring Framework and be able to participate. And through that, there's an opportunity to accelerate the delivery of the SDGs, as many cities are already collecting data at the local level on the SDGs. So the index itself has been designed through a highly consultative process. It's been organized around a series of expert group meetings, around stakeholder roundtables. And through that process, we've identified 9 key quality of life domains. You can see them in that schematic up on the screen there. And when we've developed the global layer of indicators for these 9 domains, which took place as part of this expert group meeting process, we've identified 28 +1 indicators as part of that process. And I'll explain the +1 indicator in a moment. But some of these indicators directly correspond to indicators within the Sustainable Development Goals. And then other indicators help to enrich or contribute to the measurement of some of the other SDGs. The local layer, as I mentioned earlier, is designed by the communities themselves. So they bring together stakeholders, and through a 2-day workshop process, they identify the most important quality of life priorities to them and choose the most appropriate indicators that correspond with that. We find that the indicators are both objective and subjective in both the global layer and the local layer. And the idea is we're trying to push the envelope a little bit. So we're drawing from conventional sources of data, but also unconventional sources of data. And I'm going to speak a little bit more about that in a moment here. So I'm not going to go through this, but this just gives you an overview of the global layer of the indicators, so the 28 +1. So you can see on the one side, you have the different corresponding domains, and then on the other side, you have the indicators themselves. And I'm just going to highlight that you'll see many of them are probably indicators that you're quite familiar with, given that they come from the SDG process itself. And then you see that shaded box at the bottom, that's the +1 indicator. So it's a benchmark indicator. So the idea here is that it's measuring overall life satisfaction. So it allows us to assess the overall performance of our index relative to life satisfaction. So it's just a useful metric for us to see how the index is performing as a whole. This is just so that was about the global layer. This is a little bit more about the local layer. So again, the cities come together through a multi-day workshop. They identify what their most important quality of life priorities are, and then select indicators that are most relevant to them. And what we're finding, these are just some examples. We're in the process of 10 pilot cities at the moment, but here's some highlights from 5 of them. So each of them are giving the index their own flavor. So Vancouver in Canada has focused more on health and inclusion. Querétaro in Mexico, more around heritage and identity. And you can see some of the others up there as well. So how is this relevant to you, and why is this important to the SDGs? Well, as I mentioned, we are measuring 7 indicators directly from the SDGs, and we map to several other indicators. We currently have 10 cities we're working with, and the aim is to scale up to 100 by the end of 2025. Many cities that are already working with the SDGs are finding it useful to make that connection between quality of life and sustainable development. So again, marrying these two concepts, seeing how progress towards the SDGs also contributes towards improved quality of life. And we're also exploring new sources of data as well. So an opportunity to help close the data gap there. So I'm going to be quick. I only have a couple minutes left, but this is just one example that I'll highlight here. So this is the city of Vancouver, and this is one of the examples of the more innovative sources of data we're looking at. So if you see that small dot in the middle, that's a park called Shannon Park in Vancouver. And the ring around that is a catchment area of a 15-minute walk radius. And so the assumption is, or the idea is, that if I live close to a park, it's going to improve my quality of life or give me access to amenities that I'm going to benefit from. But through the use of mobile phone data, we're finding that through revealed preference, we're seeing that actually 75% of the people in that catchment area aren't using Shannon Park. They're using other parks throughout the city. And there's various reasons for that. It could have to do with the quality of the park, or their patterns throughout the city when they go to and from work, or meeting up with friends on the way. But just an idea that through new forms of data, we're able to help enrich that data and narrative. And this is the last slide here. This is just a snapshot of the platform that the index is going to be put up on. I was hoping to show a live demo of this, but we're actually going to be showcasing the index itself in 2 weeks at the World Urban Forum. So we're doing some debugging at the moment, but this just gives you a static idea of what the platform looks like, where we have all of the indicators aggregated by the 9 different domains. That's that fan image on the one side, and then also a dashboard of the indicators for each of the initiatives. And we're also have a function in there that we're currently developing right now, which allows us to spatially map the data. So it's not just about showing a score for the data for the city, but being able to see how that performs in different neighborhoods throughout the city. So for example, you could look at the overall score for safety in the city and think my city's safe, but it's a different picture when you can see which neighborhoods score higher and which ones score lower. So important aspect of disaggregation in this as well. So with that, I will thank you for your time, but hopefully a chance to hear from you guys about how this might be able to help some of the work you're doing, or some feedback on important considerations for us. Thank you.
Thank you to UN Habitat, Kyle Farrell. And now, Esperanza, the floor is yours. Mobile data, the SDGs.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to all of you. So the last presentation sort of introduced to us the use of mobile phone big data for elaborating on some of the SDG work that they are doing. But today I'm going to present to you the use of mobile phone big data for SDG ICT indicators. So I came from the International Telecommunication Union, but I'm also representing the UN Committee of Experts on big data and data science for official statistics, particularly on the task team on mobile phone big data. So the ITU has been collecting and disseminating data that pertains to our sector, mainly data that are coming from telecommunication regulators and ministries, but also collecting data from national statistics offices on the use of information and communication technologies, data that are collected from ICT household surveys. And so from this data collection and dissemination, we found out that specifically the demand side data, countries are still struggling on collecting those data from household surveys due to the lack of resources and also to the cost that is associated to the collection of those data. So we had looked at alternative data sources. We are looking at particularly the use of mobile phone big data and also the use of other open data sources to complement the traditional data sources that we have. And so in particular, for the 5 SDG indicators that we are monitoring as custodian agency, we look at target 9C and percentage of population covered by mobile network, and target 17.8 8 on the proportion of individuals using the internet, particularly for these two indicators, how we can use mobile phone big data to complement or supplement the data that are lacking from household surveys. So in 2016, we piloted in 5 countries the use of mobile phone big data, and we found out that there are different experiences that pertains to those countries. One, the challenges that they face is the lack of data access, or the challenge that is related to data access, mainly operators not able to share the data due to their confidentiality or business reservations. But at the same time, we learned that skills and infrastructure remains to be a challenge in many countries, particularly in the NSOs. So those challenges we were able to discuss and address in a task team that I will mention to you later on. And then in particular, during COVID, this task team managed to put together and work together to pilot and to discuss common issues related to the use of mobile phone big data. So in the ITU, we piloted in Brazil and in Indonesia on how we can use MPD for those 2 SDG indicators that I mentioned earlier. And this work has been going on since then, and particularly this year and last year, we are working with several countries in the implementation of the use of mobile phone big data. And just recently, 2 weeks ago, I was at the World Bank because we have a project on the use of MPD funded by the Global Data Facility, where we will be training countries, 18 countries, and helping them to use MPD for policy making and for the deriving indicators that relates particularly to those that are important for the SDGs and global monitoring. So the task team on mobile phone big data is currently composed of more than 50 experts represented by countries, international organizations, as well as nonprofit organizations, and experts working on the use of mobile phone big data. So we have looked at 6 areas on how we can use mobile phone big data to calculate population, migration, tourism, information society indicators, where I'm coming from, transport statistics, and disaster statistics. So many of these areas we've heard already that some indicators are included in the SDGs, and so these areas could be used to, or these sources can be used to complement data that are lacking from household surveys or any type of data collections that you have. So in particular, what I will be describing to you is the work that we are working in the ITU with regards to the development of methods, particularly for the 2 SDG indicators that I mentioned earlier. And we developed a handbook. This is one of the handbooks coming out of the task team. So the other topics that I mentioned earlier also have this guide or handbook that could be used when analyzing mobile phone big data. And this handbook looks at the different processes, how data can be accessed, what are the data quality assurance that you need to check, what are the reference data and other forms of data that you will need to analyze mobile phone big data, and methods on how to calculate the indicators. We also include country experiences, so you can check how these countries manage to analyze mobile phone big data. And so this is an experience from Brazil, where they piloted in Rio de Janeiro on the indicator population using the internet, which is an SDG indicator. And in here, they were able to show the more disaggregated level data pertaining to different types of internet access in those parts of the Rio de Janeiro. And this is a comparison with the household survey data. And what they concluded is that the data that's coming from mobile phone big data is very close to what they calculated using household survey data. This is for SDG 9C1, an experience from Indonesia and also in Brazil, where they were able to identify the different types of technologies in a more disaggregated level and how they are covering the different parts of the country. And so this is the good news. We have developed in the ITU Jupyter Notebooks, which is something that the National Statistics Office can run using synthetic data, which we also develop in the task team, if you would like to learn how to use mobile phone big data. So these Jupyter Notebooks are available. If you would like to get hold of them, please contact me, and you will be able to experiment and practice on how to use mobile phone big data. And then additional resources are available here, particularly on the other guides that I mentioned earlier, and also an awareness raising course on the use of mobile phone big data. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. We have one more presentation we will open before opening the floor to questions. So the next one is about innovative uses of non-traditional and integrated data for SDG monitoring, a scoping review by Hui Chen, UNSD.
Thank you so much, Chair. Let me move to the next slide. Okay. So I'm going to present some work that has been done by this group. You might remember the famous questionnaire that you've been collecting information from member states, from NSOs, and we also did a little bit more further research work from other resources, just trying to see what are the non-traditional data sources that have been used really to produce filling data gap for SDG indicators. So here's the summary. Really, we look around all the different data sources, and we have covered geospatial information, mobile phone positioning data, and social media and citizen data. And there has been a lot of discussion on data integration and all the information that's been collected from the questionnaire. And then we will touch upon a little bit on the data quality considerations as well. So this work has been done by one of our consultants, just grateful for her contribution. Her name is Jasmine Ha, just to acknowledge her contribution in summarizing all this into a report. So what we found in the collection of all these innovations used in geospatial has been the most promising data sources in the non-traditional data source space that has been used a lot to support. We've heard in the past 2 days as well, a lot have been used. There are some discussion on what NSO have been under control of traditional data, like there is geospatial information within the control of NSO, but then there are other satellite imagery, remote sensing, and then location of key infrastructures and sensors. And the two are in some cases are brought together, integrated to provide more information or to support SDG monitoring implementation. So there have been a lot of discussion in our review is on availability and access to data sources, and geospatial information and remote sensing data have becoming more and more available as open source, but there are a lot are still under strict control either by government or military, or has to be purchased from private sector. So that has been a challenge. And of course, there has been a lot of discussion on the technical and financial capabilities of countries and NSOs to procure those data sources, also to work with these data. How do you really work with geospatial data? Do we have the capacity within NSOs? So that has been covered a lot in information provided through the questionnaire. Data quality consideration, comparability and consistency has been a challenge whenever there are two different data sources and they tend not to be interoperable, and the boundaries tend to be very different, and there had to be this geospatial team come in and make sure the two sources, you start to align the boundaries. It's been very challenging. High resolution also, and then geospatial come in. It will work. Sometimes it doesn't always work. It depends on what you're trying to achieve. It can predict well-being, but it's not going to be helpful for other indicators. So that has been also discussed a lot in the use from countries. Now, mobile phone positioning data is extremely helpful because of its nature of data. It has a lot of information, as President just talked about. I'm not going to repeat on this. One of the challenges, so we from UNSD, we've been working through the Data for Now initiative to support countries, and Tunisia is one of the countries extremely interested in using mobile phone positioning data to produce data on internal migration. That's not SDG indicator, but extremely important for SDG indicators because that's the denominators. So we've been supporting them, and up to a maturity level, one of the most difficult aspects we had to overcome is data access and discussion with mobile phone regulators on access. And I think we're almost there. We're so grateful for Esperanza and her team, and also the World Bank Global Data Facility to support in the second phase of Tunisia's initiative. We're really grateful for that. But there are also a lot of data quality considerations. When the phone dropped out, so all this signals lost, does it mean that the people is not moving, or is it because and the phone just lost the signal? So there are a lot of cleaning required, and they are biased. It depends on how many mobile phone companies data access you have. So you don't capture everyone. So a lot of study had talked a lot about benchmarking using traditional data sources. Here, I'd like to bring in the importance of household surveys, not just because I work in household survey, but it is really important to benchmark that, to put the data sources together. Social media, great work. We've done some work through the Data for Now initiative as well. But the challenge is really there's so different types of social media data, and how do you web scrape it? So continuity sustainability is a challenge. And benchmarking, again, is a challenge, of course, technical capacities and how to work with those data. And with the support of, I think, UNDP colleagues in Colombia have done great work on that, on the Data for Now initiative. But it is such a variety of data sources to work with. So the technical capacity, it comes in all different ways. And then to really work with them, it's going to be a challenge. Yes, 3 minutes, almost done. Sit-in data. So we already had a session during lunch hours just to talk about they have started to appear in the questionnaire. Saying it's very promised, we need more support. So that's the overall messages. But sit-in data itself, they're so diverse in data types. They can be a small survey, non-probabilistic. We have to think about how to work with those non-probabilistic surveys. And they can be very qualitative data. And if you have, and then social scientists sitting here, you will talk about focus group discussion. We talk about main informant, what's it called? Survey, or just a community scorecard. So we're not experienced with working with this type of data sources that is qualitative in nature. So what do we do? Of course, to go with the implementation of the Copenhagen framework on sit-in data, that's the only way to move forward. Sorry, I'm joking, but it's just, we will be talking about a lot about data quality and really see where do we go from on data, qualitative data, and a lot of NSOs have already started to moving towards that direction. For example, ONS and from in UK. And we will be talking a lot about sufficient and meaningful engagement. What does it mean, and trust building? Recap. So when we talk about non-traditional data sources, and there are a lot of varieties, so we cannot just say, okay, this is the way to go. It really depends on the data sources we're working with, and then work closely with those communities. 7 minutes. And then data access is a challenge, of course. It is also not about just filling data gap, it's about making data more inclusive. And it's a quality and comparability will be our very main challenge also for not working with non-traditional data sources. And we really hope to bring the data integration aspect to really support that. And of course, there are a lot of challenges on data analysis as well. Let me see. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. You have questions? Email me. I'm in a time limit.
Yes, thank you to all the presentations, especially for keeping the very strict time limit. But now the floor is open for questions. So if any of you have some questions to the last 5 presentations, I can see at least one question.
You expected that I will have a question. Jukka, thank you for this brilliant presentation. And I think we should ask something about your presentation, because you were the first one, and the first presentation is quite often forgotten if you have 4 others afterwards. I would like to recall the 3rd interagency expert group meeting we had. It was in 2016 in Mexico City. At the end of March, 1st of April. And I still remember that it was a very chaotic, remarkable meeting. And we started very, very early in the morning because we ran out of time. And I still remember that I sent an email home to my directress telling her, oh, it's running out of scope and we need an urgent meeting in 3 weeks in Bonn to compensate for this. And she didn't get that it was an April's Fool. So it was really a remarkable thing. But there we discussed already headline indicators. There we already had the discussion on having a short set or short list of indicators, not 3 as you presented, but probably something around 10. And I still remember in the coffee break, I was immediately taken out by Ivo Havinga. Probably some of you still know him. And he looked at me in a very serious way. Sven, even if it's stated in the Agenda 2030, no one in political New York ever wants to have a selected short list of indicators from you guys. And then the discussion was dead. So is this still the official opinion of UNSD that there will be no short lists or no headline indicators for the Agenda 2030 SDGs? Thanks.
Does UNSD want to answer this now, or should we take some more questions?
Actually, if I guess it's a different USD. Like I have the idea to bring the headline indicator, but maybe it's too early in 2016 because the indicator framework has a lot to discuss. So that discussion is premature, and so it didn't go anywhere. But it's beyond GDP work is the limit set. I was thinking it's possible can link to the headline indicator, but I'm not in a position to say that.
Sorry.
We have some more questions, I see. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, I think I'm going. Sorry. My question was originally for Omar, but then actually, Howie, you touched on it as well. So maybe I'll ask a specific question to you, Omar, and maybe Howie, you can talk more generally about it. So my question was going to be, how do you essentially your way of collecting this citizen data for certain indicators, particularly on kind of happiness with government services, is like self-selecting. And so, I think you'd expect people to remember negative experiences more and therefore report on them more. So I guess my question is, how do you account for that kind of negative bias in the data? And if you don't, well, do you need to, is the wider thing? Are you using it as a mechanism to kind of flag bad services as opposed to take a more like general view of how people are actually feeling? And then I guess if you are taking that approach, how do you communicate that to people using the data so they don't misunderstand what that data is actually doing? So I guess, yeah, that's my specific question to you. And then Howie, if you could talk more generally about maybe principles around when and how to use these kinds of methods and what's appropriate and what's not.
Would you like to answer, Omar?
Thank you very much. The methodology for monitoring SDG 1662 is within a calendar year of 12 months. So the question basically asks about education, health, and government services. Is the last time within the last 12 months that an individual or a household has accessed these services. And then the number of questions that are asked is not just a one question, it's a series of questions. And I think that is available. To the second part, yes, it's more for us, gaps that we identify. For instance, we currently do not have any survey system that provide data on some key indicators. So if we find this to be a way of providing a measure for government to have a sense of how we are performing as a country on these areas, especially around the governance-related indicators, because that is where I'm very much, particular about, and gender-based violence. So then it becomes very important to appreciate the fact that these would provide indication to what is happening. For instance, on the gender-based violence, we realized that persons with disabilities had a higher, likelihood of being sexually abused. And in our recent pilot, we also realized that In religious institutions, it's becoming a phenomenon where people are abused, which in all the other surveys, traditional surveys, we didn't find this. And so these are areas that we believe it will add value. And so you look at it from that perspective and you know that, yes, this is what is good for.
I think that was at least, yeah, I'm not sure who is the next. Yes, please go ahead.
I'm Mariana from UNDP Global Policy Center, and we are custodians of the indicator 1662. Just wanted to say that as a custodian, we are mainly supporting surveys and administrative records. But what I'm about to say is to all international organizations, it's really important also for us to invest in the new approaches and try new approaches and make it right, make it wrong sometimes, and there are things that will not work. This experience with Ghana has been a great learning experience for this type of indicator. So we have SDG 16, which is peace, justice, and strong institution. 1662 is strong institutions. And for us, we chose particularly this indicator to test it because it is the indicator that speaks of us actually being able to deliver to our population. Just a small note to my colleague from UK. One of the reasons that it is health, education, and government services is that exactly that it chose services that we have a higher coverage of people having some type of contact. So your concern is a very legitimate concern, and that we have very carefully dealt with in the methodology of the indicator, but also with the Ghana experience. So thank you, everyone, and I really thank Ghana for this amazing collaboration in the citizen science and sorry, just one more thing. We'll really look forward to continue collaborating in new things and making right and making wrong as well.
Yes, please go ahead. Do you do?
Just quickly on data quality, that the collaborative is going to move forward to work on a quality guide, some sort that's for data fit for purpose data. And I just recalling what Kara said during lunch is actionable data. And so there are certain data that are going to be integrated into official statistics that will subject to all the scrutinies we want in terms of biases. And there are certain that are already making an impact, might not meet that higher standard, but actionable in somewhat. So, but also requires some kind of standard. So we will be working on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we have maybe time for 1 and 2 questions.
So much. I have a question for Howie. You mentioned the financial and technical capabilities challenges in relation to dealing with and embracing new data sources. So from your experiences with countries that have already applied those kind of new data sources, what are some effective ways to overcome that challenges, especially related to data integration and interoperability with legacy system currently in place with those national statistical laws?
So specifically, what are the tools that we can offer, or the challenges? The tools. Overcome the challenges. Yes. So I can give you a couple of examples that I have been personally working on. One is we've been working a lot on smart estimation under the mandate of the IAEG-SDGs, and we are sort of getting into a little bit on the. So a smart estimation, traditional, the census data versus survey data, and there are a lot of challenges, especially administratively and convincing the government you can use model-based estimates. So we have tools and e-learnings and national experience to share how to you work with your partners. We started to get into the integration of geospatial data with household survey. What we actually found is in the NSOs, they can run models, but then working with geospatial, just go to Google Earth Engine, and we are completely overwhelmed. So we are producing a step-by-step guide to really support NSO, say, this is how you go to Google Earth Engine, this is the data set you can download, this is how you work. And then there are other packages we're offering, our packages through our partners from the World Bank. So this is really one of the tool that we are trying to support. And with household surveys, Lisha has supported, presented this morning as household survey. We are really providing guidance on how to design the survey. So thinking ahead, we are going to integrate. So how do I design the survey right? So that's another tool we have. Thank you. Sorry. R, yeah, we have R. Yes, R and Python.
If there is one more question, we just have time for one more question before we continue with the lightning talks. I do not see any hands. So I invite you once again to move and say thank you for our presentation. And I invite the new presentators to move up to the stage. So we will continue with 6 lightning talks, each 3 minutes long. Yes. Hello. So I have you here, I think. Yes. Nilbert is, yes. And Monica is here. I think we are ready to continue. So I will ask Korea to talk about SDG data communication Korea. Young Kim, please, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. My name is Young Kim from Statistics Korea. Thank you for giving this opportunity to have a presentation in this lightning talk. We are doing SDG data communication largely in 2 ways. One is SDG data platform, and the other is data forum where various stakeholders participate. Regarding the data platform, we try to follow the data platform that IAEG recommended. Through this platform, we are providing Korean data corresponding to the SDG indicators. We select one representative data for each indicator. National produced statistics in Korea that best correspond to the definition of UN SDG data, SDG indicator is selected for monitoring. If there is no such data, Korean data prepared by international organizations through estimation and modeling are selected. If neither of the two is available, through consultation with the concerned agencies, alternative similar national statistics is used, even not exactly corresponding to UN SDG indicator. Looking at the data availability in Korea, it increased from 71% in 21 when the platform was first opened to 83% as of 2024. Another important tool for SDG data communication is SDG Data Innovation Forum, hosting since 2022. In Korea, this is the first official forum from SDG data perspective, taking the viewpoint of data in sharing the status of Korea's progress toward in the SDGs and discussing its directions with stakeholder groups. The forum has 3 main parts: a keynote speech on the direction in which Korea's SDGs should advance, and 1 session reviewing Korea's SDG implementation status, and another session with case studies of data innovation to improve SDG data segmentation and enhance data availability. So that as many people as possible can attend, forum is held in a hybrid format with offline and YouTube live broadcast. Sign language interpretation is also provided. And presentation materials and videos are posted on the forum's website. Anyone can see what discussed in that forum. We believe that this forum helps to spread the importance of SDG data to general public as well as stakeholders and help them acquire data utilization capabilities. Sorry. Thank you for listening my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Renata Bielak from Statistics Poland.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Heather, I'm already terrified because of the time pressure. Anyway, it's my pleasure to share with you latest outcomes of Statistics Poland efforts towards territorial disaggregation of SDGs and communicating these indicators to users. So let me start with saying that based on methodology prepared by the UN, we used administrative data sources and Earth observations methods to disaggregate indicators and to prepare to elaborate 3 indicators for Goal 11. These indicators were calculated for 18 Polish cities that are capitals of voivodeships. Voivodeships are main units of territorial division in Poland. Having this data available, we decided to prepare a special website to communicate them to users. Here on the slide, you can see QR code to this website. This website is called Experimental Statistics for SDGs, and this is a part of an element of National Reporting Platform for SDGs in Poland. Each indicator is presented on maps that were prepared for all 18 cities. And this way, users can easily find out general city characteristics. So here, for example, you can see examples of 2 Polish cities concerning share of open public space available to all. So just look how different Polish cities are concerning this indicator. Together with data and maps visualization, we provide also on this website some metadata information. So we explain how these indicators are calculated and what data sources are used for calculation of these data. And to enable more comprehensive analysis, we decided also for each city to provide more context indicators. So for example, when we have this indicator on convenient access to public transport, we provide more statistics like subject-oriented statistics on bicycle routes or bus lines. And actually, that's all I wanted to communicate. And let me conclude by inviting you to explore this website. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Monica.
Renata.
Sorry, Renata. Yes, I know. Sorry about that. World Health Organization is the next presenter, Hai-Dong Wang, and he's going to talk about small area estimation models for health. Please go ahead.
All right, so last night I was reading the SDG report shared by Yongyi and colleagues from the UNDASA. And on SDG 3, there is emphasis on lack of progress in achieving, reducing maternal mortality ratio at the global level. So at the current pace, we're not going to achieve 70 per 100,000 by 2030 at the global level. And certainly, this is what we have observed across the globe. Although, we have achieved a lot in improving maternal mortality during the MDG era, but the progress in many countries has slowed down, stalled, or even reversed in certain countries. So on the right-hand side of this slide, you can see a map of WHO's Afro region. On the left-hand side is the distribution of maternal mortality ratio in 2020 based on the most recent UN agency estimates. And with that, you can extrapolate that out, basically say, okay, based on the rate of change we observed, how many years it's going to take each country to achieve the SDG in reducing MMR to 70 per 100,000. The red color indicates it's over 100 years. So there are a lot of still needs to be done. So going back to the call to action from yesterday's presentation, GIS to rescue SDG, we do believe that using GIS or using small area estimation models, we can provide the much needed disaggregated information at the subnational level, because as mentioned by the colleagues from Save the Children this morning, the national average can mask a lot of subnational inequality and heterogeneity, and we really need actionable data at the subnational level. So what we do here, we develop a small tool called Small Area Estimation for Health. On the left-hand side, you can see that what you can do is to choose the country you want to provide specific estimates for. It's a drop-down menu, and then you choose the year where you have the data for, and then you choose the indicators that you want to make estimates. All you need to do is upload the information that is indicated on this tool. So basically, you upload the data, download data from DHS in this case, and upload the specific indicators as indicated by the tool, and you make the estimates. So on the right-hand side, it basically says, okay, both the individual level record data has been verified, and then GIS information has been verified. Now you can go ahead and make the estimates. On the left-hand side of this graph, this is the distribution of admin 2 level unmet need at the admin in Rwanda in 2019, and in the spirit of being transparent and also gain trust in such estimates, on right-hand side, you can see there is a vast list of diagnostic graphs we can make. So this is for one of the admin 1 level unit province distribution of unmet need among the admin 2 level unit. You can see the mean for many of the districts are very similar, although mean they are different, although the uncertain interval overlap, but one of the district really stands out. So this is how we help people to use the data and gain the trust and gain the ownership of the estimates as well. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Very interesting. And we move on to AI through the lens of official statistics and SDGs. Mercedes Fogarasi from Paris 21 OECD.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Mercedes Fogarasi, and as most people have started their presentations off, this is my first meeting. So thank you. Thank you. I work with Paris 21. For those of you who might not be familiar with Paris 21, we are the Partnership in Statistics for Development in the 21st Century. A little bit of a mouthful as anything is that's hosted at the OECD, which is where we are in Paris. And our work is really focused on the modernization and support to national statistical systems. And within that, my work specifically is on all things AI, digital innovation, those fun buzzwords that we hear occasionally that I definitely like to talk a little bit about. Within that, we have done some research on the use of AI for official statistics as it's been used by NSOs and specifically for monitoring of the SDGs. Earlier this year, we actually put out a report with a title along those lines. I won't repeat that for you, but it's right on the slide there. And within that, we look at 3 country case studies. Again, I won't get into those specifics because I am not from those countries' NSOs, but we did use these as case studies and map them according to specific targets and indicators of the SDGs and how different types of innovative data and different types of AI as well are being used. So we've got a case study in Ghana, which we've actually talked about a few times here already. Thank you, Omar, and other colleagues for bringing that up, so I won't explain too much about that. We also looked at how Colombia is using AI, satellite imagery, and citizen data for predicting poverty rates around the country. And then we also examined the use of Switzerland's AI-developed chatbot for the SDG, I believe that's number 16.10 right there, which makes government data easier and more accessible for citizens to actually engage with. Again, as any report from the OECD, it wouldn't be complete without policy recommendations, but in order to actually put together those policy recommendations, we wanted to go a little further in terms of the risks, the benefits of using AI, very specifically within this whole realm of digital technologies for monitoring the SDGs. Of course, when it comes to benefits, there are many. We've got the efficiencies and productivity that can increase. We've got reduced costs. We've also got things like machine data becoming more machine readable. But on the other hand, it's important to consider the risks as well, which I'm sure everybody is well familiar with here. But just in case you're not, there is the risk of increasing biases and digital divides, inequalities as well. There's also the risk of privacy violations. And then, of course, if there are not adequate data governance structures in place, which is most relevant here, there is a significant risk for the improper use of AI. In terms of policy recommendations, this is where I urge you all to go and actually look at that report because there are several, but we've divided them into 3 categories. The first on strategies, policies, and guidelines, the second on documentation and measurement, and finally, policy guidelines on the practical applications of AI to eliminate risks, which kind of ties it all full circle. So I'll leave it there. thank you all. I'd be happy to chat more about it. And actually, perhaps just before I step off, because I haven't received the yellow card yet, we do produce the partner report on support for statistics, or PRESS, which was the graph that was shown by our colleague SN about grants versus loans and funding for statistics. That's coming out in 2 weeks. So a little plug for that there. If you're interested, please let me know. I'd be happy to send it to you. Thank you.
Thank you for this last bit of important information. And time is ticking, so we move on to Neil Burgess, work on nature metrics, indicators, and online tools.
Hello, everybody. As I mentioned earlier, I work on environmental data. And as I also mentioned earlier, there's a whole conference going on, a whole convention going on in Colombia at the moment, the Convention on Biological Diversity, COP16. Many of my colleagues from UNEP and UNEP WCMC are there. Now, I'm going to talk a bit more about that because I think it is relevant to the SDGs. For example, they have a whole monitoring framework that has 38 headline indicators that have been mentioned before. 15 of those headline indicators are exactly the same as the SDG ones, but they've also got a whole load of like 200 other indicators as well. So that system of monitoring and measuring, which is agreed by countries, is going to be paralleling with a 2030 deadline, the SDG process on the environmental side. So I'm going to talk about a few resources that you might find useful in the SDG world. So as that monitoring framework was being created, organizations like us created massive Excel spreadsheets of all the possible indicators and metrics that could ever possibly be used on the environmental side. We will turn it into a beautiful database, but it's currently a horrible Excel spreadsheet. But it is published, so you can get this and you can download it. There are at least 570 metrics just for the terrestrial side, not for marine, not for freshwater. It's going to go well over 600. There's lots of them. You all know that. They cover state pressure response and critically, I think, for SDGs, benefits to people. So increasingly, you can measure the benefits with agreed metrics or defined metrics. So there's a data source out there. Of these, 15 are kind of overlapping between the two conventions, and they cover gene species and ecosystems. So there's benefit side from the genetic diversity, species that are used for sustainable use, and ecosystems that might be ecosystem health stuff. So there's that. So that's one resource. Second resource is a data system that has got spatial data in it. People talked about spatial data yesterday. You can go to this system for all targets and all indicators under the Global Biodiversity Framework. You can access appropriate spatial data where available. As a country, you can go into this tool, you can set yourself up a password protected workspace. You can actually play with data. You can put your own data into it. You can actually do some spatial planning in it as well. So this is a resource that is done for the CBD, but might be useful for the SDGs. And then just to say in my last minute, there is also a whole knowledge system being created for the Global Biodiversity Framework. FAO's making a knowledge system, UNEP's making knowledge systems with multiple different tools, multiple different things being created for the nature side of things. Are those tools being created for the CBD useful and relevant for the environment side of the SDGs? I don't know, but the deadline is the same. People are spending money creating tools for two different processes that may actually have utility for each way round. So I'm just saying these things are being created. UNEP is making a lot of these kind of things. Could they be useful to the SDGs? Maybe, perhaps, and I'm going to stop there. Thank you very much.
And now we have reached the last presentation in this session, which will be leveraging new data sets for evidence-based policy making. And it's by Monica Michel-Lago, European Association of Remote Sensing Corporation.
Yes, thank you very much. Don't worry, you don't need to read this. It is just to reflect the complexity on the policy domain. I'm not so new here, but probably I'm very glad also to see that geospatial has been integrated in some of the NSOs. So this is something that I'm very motivated because has been already some work done. We are doing this exercise as a private sector, but together with the space agencies. So the reason why we are here is really to better understand which are the needs of the NSOs to integrate these data sets. I'm very glad again to see that this is working. The perspective that we are bringing is this policy context. So, and also backing up on what Neil just mentioned, is that has been a lot of it done, and also in the policy domain. There are different levels of policy that you can see at the United Nations discussions in the policy, treaties, conventions, etc. Then at European level, we do have the Green Deal agenda. So how to matrix the UN 2030 agenda with the Green Deal agenda and the different overarching framework of policies behind that. So you can see, for instance, for the biodiversity component, we have pieces of regulations that are looking into forestry domain, for example, just touching into the biodiversity framework. And in the national level is when this regulatory framework is making effective. So countries, they need to implement policies to succeed on this reporting. So where SDGs are coming, because SDGs could be part of this processing. So just highlighted there in the colorful red or greenish is that maybe in the example of forestry, you can see that the forest management has been already implemented by the forest monitoring law or the regulation for EU deforestation-free regulations. So we need to bridge synergies also with other policy domains. Here is where we did, understanding the policies, we need to see where we are in the indicator and when we would like to see these policy areas and actions to be integrated. So our exercise is looking indicator by indicator, always looking into the environmental part. So Earth observation is not really fitting for all the set of indicators, but for those ones that we could contribute, we may see this exercise. So we look into the purpose, the computation, and the processes. So just taking the example for the SDG 14 or SDG 15, I just marked the red one just also because they're limited of time. We have a pipeline of process. So basically we identified that the pipeline is really basically in the same in every SDGs, looking at the getting the data, processing the data, and validating the data. And in this validation is where the regulation or policies contexts are more effective. So this is just a sample where you have in the top part this data acquisition, this pre-processing and analysis, and then the indicator calculation, and then validating the data and reporting. So in all these elements, there are different stakeholders that are already working with this type of data set. So it's better to do this stakeholders engagement so we could benefit from what has been done. So for this particular part, we need to identify, because the SDGs is a voluntary national reporting. So if there are other agencies in your country that are already doing this exercise, it's better to make the synergies. So for land cover classification, there are already environmental agencies that are collecting the data, and the data is available with free and open data policies. It's just to make the best use. Also for the research and community is really to bring in this exercise. So just to sum up, is really take on board what are other policies in your respective countries doing for to fulfill the regulation, and how other stakeholders are providing this data set. So with that, I think enhancing the policy domain into the SDGs indicators, I think is the best way to go forward. But again, this is my first time here, so maybe I'm saying something that you already is obvious for you. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Monica. And now we have a few minutes for questions. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. I see one hand raised too.
All right, my question is for WHO. I first want to say thank you for your presentation on using small area estimation techniques for modeling maternal health. I wanted to understand a little bit better, though, how your model was developed, because in my experience using small area estimation techniques, the models vary very widely from country to country, and even within country, they vary very widely. So I'm just trying to understand how your model was fitted so that it's applicable across countries. So if you could maybe provide some more insight or refer me to where I can read the technical material, that would be grateful.
Would you please like to answer that now before we take the next question?
Sure, thank you. As you know, there are multiple ways for small area estimation. And depending on what type of data you have, if you have raster information or if you have aerial data, whether you use covariates or not, those are really a wide range of modeling choices. So it was too quick for me to show, but there are 3 different modeling options for small area estimation. You can do direct model, area model, and unit model, depending on the nature of the data set. So for this one specific, this Shiny App tool is geared towards the DHS data since 2000. So everything is applied to DHS data. But depending on your modeling choice, the diagnostic compartment, a part of this modeling tool did provide you a lot of diagnostic graphs helping you to get through, which model to choose. And among all the different choices, what are the pros and the cons? Because we want to make it transparent, make it clear that this is just modeled estimates. It has its pros and cons, and there is also wide range of answering an interval depending on the information strengths. So I didn't mention that, but one of the slides actually shows depending on once we have the data imported, it shows the strength of the data at the admin 2 level. How many clusters are in each of the admin 2 level unit is being shown. That's another way to show the users, how do you view the data after you have the estimates? How do you interpret it? How strong the evidence is, and what is the aspect information you should get from? But certainly, depending on the indicator, if there's additional stronger empirical information like income, maternal education level, we can import that covariates. That's something we can certainly build upon as well. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you for the answer. Can we take the next and last questions, I think?
Okay, thank you. Thank you to all the presenters. It was very informative. My question is to Haidong from WHO. In the small area estimation you showed us, the example is basically about the maternal health. Are you using this model to estimate other indicators as well? For example, one area where we had a lot of gaps is access to healthcare services. Are you using this model to estimate that as well, or any other innovative data techniques like the geographic information system or big data to estimate access to health services? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. So right now, as I mentioned earlier, this tool is built for purpose. It's specifically for utilizing DHS data, given the wide availability and both on the indicator side and also GIS information, because those are publicly available. And for what you said about specifically access to healthcare, there is another tool from our department. It's called Access Mod. That is specifically focusing on access to health services or how far away you are to each of those health facilities in especially low and middle income countries. And I'm happy to share that information with you if that's what you're interested in. And we do plan to integrate that information in some of our estimates as well for specific outcome indicators that being affected by access to healthcare at the subnational level. That's certainly a future development direction for this type of tool as well. And I do want to make sure that this tool is publicly available. It's free. You can either use it at our package or use the Shiny app because this is a more user-friendly graphic user interface. You can click buttons and it generates specific estimates with diagnostic information available to you. And we're building also a manual on how to use the tool and how to interpret the results as well to make it totally transparent and available to people. Thank you.
This wraps up our session. Now it's time to have some coffee, and we start again 3:30. Correct? Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this last session of presentations. The topic will be on data partnership and capacity development for the SDGs, so two very important topics. As before, we will have 4 longer presentations of 8 minutes maximum, and afterwards we have questions on for these 4 speakers. And in the second part of the hour, we will have a few lightning talks with short questions at the end as well. So I will moderate this session. My name is Pascal Blickle. I'm from the Swiss Federal Statistical Office, and I'm in the International Affairs Department there. So, and I think without further ado, we can start with the first speaker, Mariam Al-Sabeh from the Central Statistical Bureau of Kuwait. She will talk about data for a better world and strengthening partnership and building capacity for the SDGs. Right.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. So we'll be demonstrating the significance of strengthening partnerships and building capacity for sustainable development goals. Exploring how data-driven collaborations and capacity building around data to achieve the sustainable development goals. So data, as we know, helps identify gaps, makes informed decisions, ensured resources are used effectively, and without any reliable data, we cannot measure the advancements or understand the interventions needed. The role of data in sustainable development goals. So first, we track the progress. It's crucial to measure how far we've come to help monitor the progress in poverty rates, in school enrollment, and all that. Then we have the informed decision making, relying on data to make evidence-based decisions by governments to increase the transparency, also identifying the gaps and the challenges, knowing the regions that require more attention. Facilitating the partnerships, the data fosters the collaboration. It provides a common language to bring together the stakeholders to share all the data available and the resources. And finally, enabling innovating solutions. So all this ensures accurate, sustainable progress. Strengthening partnerships and capacity development around data for SDGs. These are 2 elements that work perfectly to give maximum impact of data on the SDGs. First, they increase the collective impact by pulling all the resources together and the expertise to address complex challenges more effectively. Then they enhance the data accuracy and reliability. So the cross-verification of data ensures the accuracy and reliability to track the progress we want. Then they foster the innovation and technology transfer. Partnership gives an exchange of ideas and technologies. And building local capacity and policy influence, so having the skills and infrastructure needed to collect, analyze, and use the data effectively to sustain progress towards the SDGs. And finally, increasing the transparency to facilitate the decision-making, increases the trust to ensure the data is used effectively. The key recommendations for strengthening the data and building the capacities for SDGs by implementing the following recommendations we have around the data, we ensure that having powerful and very good tool to achieve the SDGs and build a better world for all. So we first strengthen the partnership and collaboration by forming alliances between governments and private sectors. We establish clear communication to avoid any duplications. We developed shared data standards. Second, we develop and invest in capacity development. So we prioritize training and we support the knowledge. Then we promote data-driven decisions, the policy development, evidence-based practices, and data-driven innovation. Then we address the data gaps and all the challenges we have. So we invest in data collection and develop governance framework. We regulate assessment, and we clear the guidelines to reach the reliable data. Fifth, we enhance the data accessibility and the transparency by encouraging open data sharing. Then we foster the public and private partnerships. We leverage private sector expertise. By conclusion, capacity development in data is the keystone of sustainable development, provides the tools, provides the knowledge needed to drive the progress to the global goals. So this strength is what turns the data into accurate insights and real-world impacts. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mariam. And now we're going to hear from Agnes Tassi from Statistics Denmark about partnership with a specific group of people. We're going to hear about the Academy of Young Ambassadors for the SDGs.
That's correct. So, yeah. But yeah, so my name is Agnes and I work for Statistics Denmark. But what I'm going to tell you today is actually not so much to do with Statistics Denmark. I have teamed up with a network of the young SDG ambassadors of Denmark. And so these few slides are about them. So here you can see a picture of the latest group of the young SDG ambassadors. Basically, it's a network of young people. You do have to be between 16 and 30 to be a member. And you have to be willing to go through a training of about 1 week about the SDGs, about communication skills, and also how to build engagement. And then once you are part of this network, then you should be willing to work voluntarily for a year as a young ambassador. And the next one, I have a small video message from one of the founding fathers of the ambassadors for the SDGs. So let's hear 1.5 minutes of Thomas. I hope it works. It will work. But yeah, maybe I can say that he's the chief editor.
Hello, my name is Thomas Ravn Petersen. I'm the CEO of World's Best News. Back in 2019, we established a SDG Academy. We had been informing and communicating about the global goals since they were adopted back in 2015. And we felt we needed help to meet the demand in Denmark of people who wanted to know about the global goals. So we got the idea that we needed the younger generation. We would educate them, and then they could assist us as SDG ambassadors. So since 2019, we have, in cooperation with the Danish Youth Council, been teaching and educating 190 SDG ambassadors from all across the country and in the age group of 16 to 30 to become an SDG ambassador. And what is that? It's well, we assist them to how to speak up in audiences and to plan a project in sustainability, or to how to work with their organization, that could be Scouts or political youth movement, and how to include sustainability and the SDGs in the daily work. It has been a great success, and it's really nice to see how these young people assist each other and how they influence different places locally and nationally across Denmark.
Yes. So how do I go to the next slide? So, but what is that the SDG ambassadors do? So they do participate in outreach and educational activities. And these are normally targeted towards children or young people, but not necessarily. And as Thomas said, these are the key figures. Since 2019, 190 ambassadors have been trained. They have participated maybe as a moderator or showing some slides about SDGs, more than 100 events with the total participants of over 25,000 people. And as Thomas said, the innovative approach to this network is that one side you had all these young people, back in the 2017, 18, 19, SDGs were really hot. So you had this group of young people, they wanted to do something, they wanted to be engaged. And at the same time, there was actually demand for these people. So I think it's a very clever idea to create such a network. And another activity that the young SDGs do, that you can invite them for example, participate in different panels and represent a younger generation. This is how I met them. In the summer, I moderated a discussion about the circular economy, and we had the pleasure of using one of these SDG ambassadors. And now I have a message from one of the young SDG ambassadors, who is called Sarah. And Sarah is going to tell you about her motivation of working as an SDG ambassador.
My name is Sarah Lissø. I'm 23 years old and I'm an SDG ambassador. I chose to become an SDG ambassador because I liked how the SDGs presented a holistic framework to address the public crisis the world is facing. When I participated in the SDG Academy, I not only learned skills in project management and communication, but I also got an understanding of how all of these problems the world faces is interconnected. And I really liked how we were 50 different young people with different backgrounds who had different perspectives on how to address these challenges. What I really like about the SDG ambassadors is that we work on multiple levels. So both the formal and informal ones teach SDGs in a way that children understands it, but it's also participating in a debate at the parliament. So we really work on these different levels. After the academy, I've particularly participated in debates, or I've been writing op-eds in the newspaper. It's been sort of a stepping stone for me to enter into different places where I normally wouldn't have gotten access. I've participated in debates, been invited into the parliament to discuss the SDGs, and it's just been a great opportunity to learn more and get well connected with other people working for the SDG agenda.
So this was the message from Sarah. Can we have the next slide, please? And I know that many of these young SDG ambassadors actually end up working in NGOs and international organizations. So this is also kind of a good way of getting people engaged on the long term as well. Currently, the SDG ambassadors are mostly active within Denmark. However, this year, for the first time, they did have our first international project in Uganda. This was in cooperation with an NGO, and this is actually something that they are more interested. So here's an invitation for you. If you can think of any ideas for possible collaborations, please do reach out. You can see the email address there. Also, if you have a similar organization in your country and maybe you just want to exchange some experiences, or if maybe you're inspired now to start something similar in your country, again, please send an email. They are very happy to assist you and share their experiences. And I have one last picture to show you. As Sarah said, the young SDG ambassadors are also visiting the parliament, not only schools and different conferences. Here we have the picture of them in the Danish parliament. This was just before the Minister for Foreign Affairs went to the Summit of the Future. And the young SDG ambassadors went to him and made sure that he is well prepared for this meeting, representing the young people as well. Thank you for your attention. You're also welcome to write to me. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Agnes, for telling us about this very interesting initiative. And now, before we get to the next speaker, just let me remind you that we will have the Q&A after the 4 presentations, so write down your questions. And now we're going to hear about empowering data partnerships and capacity development from an Indian perspective. Sudipta Ghosh from the Indian Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation.
Hi, good afternoon to all. I am Sudipta Ghosh from NSO India. I'll be, in my presentation, I'll be focusing on capacity development and data partnership, how it has improved or the achieving of SDGs in India. So the highlights of my presentation will be this. This is the broad contents of my presentation. Now, first of all, when we talk about data partnership, it's important to have an institutional arrangement within the NSOs. So rather within the different various ministries. So this is the institutional arrangement we have in place. So we have the Niti Aayog, that is National Institution for Transforming India, which is responsible for the overall coordination, monitoring and implementation of SDGs. Niti Aayog is also responsible for the localization of the SDGs in states. In India, states means the subnational level. Now, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, or the NSO, what we call, is responsible for the development of national indicator framework. And with the help of the data support, we release the progress report of SDGs NIF, and we also provide technical support at the subnational level. The line ministries, they are active stakeholders, which provides us both technical support as well as data support to us. Then Ministry of External Affairs plays an active role because there's a lot of international involvement, international meetings like the one here we are here today. So endorsing India's commitment to implement the SDGs while responding to national priorities, Ministry of Statistics has developed the National Indicator Framework. Now, this is like the institutional data partnership, which we can call at the national level. Now, when we talk about national indicator framework, just like the global indicator framework, this also is an evolutionary in nature, and we keep on revising and refining it based upon the feedback and proposals that we receive from the various stakeholder ministries. So the step is like the first set of proposals we receive, they are examined at the Technical Advisory Committee, which is chaired by Director General Statistics. And once it gets through that, it is placed before the high-level screening committee, which is chaired by the Chief Statistician of India and Secretary, Ministry of Statistics. And the final decision to agree or disagree to it is taken at that level. And based on whatever revised NIF, this is an annual process, and whatever NIF is finalized, the data we seek from the various ministries, and then the progress of the various indicators are published in the annual publication, which is released on 29th of June every year, which is celebrated as the National Statistics Day. And then Niti Aayog has an active role to play to incorporate the SDGs into the ongoing national and subnational policies and programs. So these are the 3 reports which we released on 29th of June: National Indicator Framework, NIF Progress Report, and Data Snapshot. This is available in the ministry's website as well. Now, coming to the data partnership at the subnational level, as I already mentioned, India has got a federal setup. So the subnational level administration is maintained at the state level, and the states are responsible for monitoring of the SDGs at the state level. And one single national indicator framework would not suffice the needs of all the various states, which are different in its own ways. So we have provided technical support to the states, and out of 36 states, 28 states have already developed their state indicator framework, and others are in various stages of finalization. Then below the state level, also some of the states have developed their district indicator frameworks. And almost all the states have developed their vision documents, which initially essentially provides a roadmap on how to align their various schemes and programs to towards the SDGs. Then further below, we have the local indicator framework and a Panchayat Development Index, that is PDI. So since a large chunk of India's population stays in the rural area, so rural level local government is maintained by the Panchayat level administration. And at that level also, we have tried to develop in collaboration with Ministry of Panchayati Raj. Is a dedicated ministry for that purpose, for catering the needs of the rural community. So based upon the NIF, the 17 goals have been aggregated into 9 broad themes, which pertains to the requirements of the local community. So these are some of the good practices. As I was mentioning, Ministry of Panchayati Raj, they have developed a Panchayati development portal. These are the 9 themes that has been selected based upon the priority of the village community. And this is unique of its kind. And it's a very recent initiative. Then since implementation of any SDGs would require investment and resources, and therefore the states have allocated certain budgets. So SDG based budgeting has been done for a couple of states. So this is another practice, a good practice we can say. And another thing is that based on NIF, Niti Aayog has developed the SDG India Index also. Now, another aspect of data partnership is the usage of modernization techniques. So we have started to use geospatial data. For one of the good example is that we have a very efficient forest cover data from India State of Forest Report. This comes once in 2 years. Then use of paperless surveys. We have the periodic labor force surveys, which cater to the many of the indicators of goal 8. And since a large amount of data cannot come from census or administrative data, so we need surveys. Socioeconomic surveys are being conducted in India, and the basis for any socioeconomic surveys to have an urban frame survey, for which we have used paperless method, and geotagging has been developed. Now, regarding international coordination and cooperation, we have signed a tripartite MOU with MOSPI, Niti Aayog, and UN Resident Coordinator Office. And for the support of data indicators and statistics for monitoring the SDGs in India. And under this ambit, MOSPI has set up a Data for Development Coordination Forum on SDGs for developing the data plan, assisting in the development of a sound measurement, improving the indicator framework after a thorough review with all the stakeholders. And very soon we are going to have the next meeting for Data for Development Forum on 22nd of November. And all the state governments, researchers, academicians, civil societies are also a part of this event. Coming to capacity development, we do conduct regular capacity development workshops to the states, different ministries, state level officers, researchers, and as I mentioned, we provide technical assistance. This is the document which we have compiled for guiding the states to develop their SIF, State Indicator Framework. Some of the other awareness programs include themes of Statistics Day. We have one or the other SDG goals as the themes of Statistics Day. This picture you can see we have different QR codes for the different SDGs goals. So you can just scan the codes and it will be an easy access to all the time series data regarding these goals. And lastly, the challenges and the way forwards. The challenges includes data privacy. There's a lot of data, so balance has to be maintained regarding open data policies and data breaches. And infrastructure gaps, sometimes internet issues, network connectivity issues do happen, so that is a challenge. Data silos, because we are dependent on various ministries and each ministries has their own set of criteria for developing or collecting data. So frequent coordination and meetings, capacity development workshops will enable us to have a common language and we can work together for a common cause. Way forwards, upgrading technology to have real-time data. We have had some beautiful sessions. We have heard we can make use of that. And further increased collaboration can lead to further refinement. That is all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zipta. And now, after these three interesting examples from NSO, we'll have Priscilla Idele from UNFPA talking about the Power of Data initiative.
I'll time myself to either. So I don't have to remind me. So good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for sticking by for this last session. And this is a group of very committed people. That's why we are all here. And that really demonstrates the power of partnerships and the power of data that I'm about to talk about. So I'm Priscilla Idele. I'm the Chief of Data and Analytics at UNFPA in New York. And I'm speaking on behalf of the co-leads of this initiative, which includes UNDP, UNICEF, the World Bank, UN Statistics Division, the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development, and our pioneer countries, Ghana, Kenya, and the United Kingdom, if they are here in the room. So for those hearing for the first time about the power of data, it's not anything different from what we have been discussing and hearing about partnerships. If any of you know ants, those little animals, if you come from Africa and some parts of the world where their ants are common, they usually build very huge mounds. If you see what they are capable of doing, it's because of the team spirit that they bring together. And when you are together, when you work together and do things together, you can make a big difference and a big impact. And that is what the power of data and the power of partnerships is. So what is the power of data? The power of data was launched last year at the SDG Summit by member states and the UN entities. And it's essentially meant to bring a collective group of interested parties around a common vision of data and statistics so that we get organized and make sure that we prioritize a common goal, that there is political commitment around it, that investments are not siloed, because the common things we hear from countries all the time is that we have too much fragmentation from donors or from those that support our priorities at the country level, duplication sometimes, and lack of cohesion and alignment with the government priorities. So the power of data, therefore, is aimed to address those specific barriers that derail otherwise achievements of the SDGs through the use of data and statistics. So essentially, it's really innovative partnerships. It's not different from what's already ongoing, but the intention is that we shall be able to do better if we did things differently. So the approach essentially has focused on coalescing around national leadership with strong political commitment so that the government is at the leadership role. It's not the development partners. And of course, I've already mentioned, it's to foster collaboration and coordination, rallying around a coherent action plan that's aligned with national priorities, and also mobilizing resources and capacities that already exist so that we maximize their use and not necessarily looking for additional money. Whenever people hear about new initiatives, they think now that's a source of new investments. No, the power of data is meant to work around what already exists in terms of resources and capacities and mechanisms. So the hope is that if we have all that I've mentioned in place, we should be able to achieve specific impacts or outcomes. And that will include having more informed decision-making, joint investments, collective action, and of course, greater accountability for results. So essentially, that is what the expected outcome is. In terms of the co-leads, I already mentioned, and those are the logos for all of the co-leads, and each of the co-leads brings their own comparative advantage into the leadership and maximizing the opportunities that are available and making sure that we contribute according to what we are able to bring on appropriately. So far, since the launch last year, there are 10 countries that have already launched what is known as the National Data Partnerships. And these partnerships are not just meant to bring the government and the UN together, but they are meant to bring all the key stakeholders, including the civil society and young people and other key groups in the country. What change has taken place since then? There has been an increased interest, of course, from the countries for those who want to join the partnership. There have also been opportunities that have unlocked additional investments, particularly from the World Bank. The World Bank has a global data financing facility, so a few countries have been able to unlock that. There are also a few countries where we have had very high leadership, like in Ghana. The partnership was launched by the vice president himself. So that is quite a very high leadership. But most of the partnerships that have been launched by ministers and other high-level officials. Similarly, we've had significant global advocacy and regional advocacy events, usually tied to key moments such as the General Assembly or the World Bank annual meetings and other regional meetings that have taken place. So, and this is just an example of a few countries that have been able to leverage specific capacities. For example, in Africa, we have Botswana, Ghana, and Somalia that have leveraged either domestic or external resources. They have also been able to improve their mechanisms for transparency and data sharing, as well as leveraging high-level political commitment. In Latin America, again, where a number of countries have already launched national data partnerships, that's me, myself, timing myself. So we've also had similar, achievements in that regard. So essentially, what I would like to conclude with is that the power of data fundamentally is a government-led initiative. and it has high-level national political commitments. It mobilizes existing resources and capacity for more strategic investments and accountability, as well as creating a basis for a joint action around a common action plan. So to join the initiative, you can contact any of the agencies that I've mentioned, or you can contact me. That would be easier. And you can also join through the regional commissions and other UN entities that are available at the country level. So please join us in this exciting journey that we call the power of data. And I will add the power of partnerships, because that's when we can leverage a lot of impact and results. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Priscilla. And now I'll give it over to the public. If you have any questions to any of the 4 speakers that we've just heard. Questions, comments, ideas?
Either it was so straightforward, or we are so tired, we just want to go home.
Ah, yes, there's questions. Great.
Thank you. This question is for India. I was very excited to see your national indicator framework documents and process. Just very briefly, could you comment on who endorsed that? Was it led by the statistics agency, or were the planners and other line ministries heavily involved? Just a question on how that came about, and also congratulations.
Thank you. So let's take the next question and then respond to all the questions at once.
For the power of data, I was just curious how the platform managed to leverage funding, external funding, internally within the country. I guess I can understand, but how did you use the platform to raise funding?
Are there more questions?
Observation from UNFPA, most of the countries that you just most of the countries just showcased here for participating in this initiative are almost all from the global south. So is there a reason for the countries from the developed world not taking part in this initiative? From the graph that you showed from Colombia and African countries, most of them are from developing countries. So were there any reason for not taking part from developed countries? Thank you.
Thank you. So I don't see any more questions, so let's answer them. If that's okay, I'll give to Sudipta first.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was a coordinated effort, and the decision came from the higher authorities. The mandate of developing the national indicator framework was given to MOSPI, Ministry of Statistics, and NITI Aayog is responsible for the overall coordination as well as the localization work. Having said that, various agencies and stakeholders are always at each step they are involved. So especially NITI Aayog, different line ministries, and obviously UNRC office also. And like I said, we have signed this tripartite MOU also. So in case of any refinement, the decision will be made first at the level of people, UNRC, NITI, MOSPI, and other ministries. This will be again taken up in the technical advisory committee. Then finally it will be endorsed in the high level screening committee, which is chaired by Chief Statistician of India. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. The first question on fundraising, maybe just to repeat that the power of data is not about raising new funds. It's about maximizing what already exists so that it's used appropriately and we rally around a common vision. Because if we start every initiative by thinking about new money, then we don't even make use of what already exists. So our ambition is not to raise funds. Our ambition is to make sure what exists at the country level is well positioned to support, better generation and use of data and statistics accordingly. So in every country, there are often capacities, there are often resources. But I come from one such country, which I've already seen what happens when there are so many donors and each person is prioritizing different initiatives. And that often doesn't result to impact. And we are all enemies of ourselves, both from the donor angle, but also from the recipients. Because as receivers of funding, if we don't coalesce around specific, action plans, we often misuse funds, even if we don't think that we are misusing them. At the same time, the donors also do not get their acts together, and therefore, spread the beans around, and so you have some beans in the bush and some beans on a well-tended farm. So we, whichever end you are, we need to coalesce around properly so that we can achieve better results. In terms of the participation of developed countries, I think you probably know the answer to that. I don't know if I should give you the answer, but I'm not quite sure that. Look at data collection, for example. We had yesterday, we had today. How many developed countries conduct demographic and health surveys that are, funded through the regular programs that are collecting data at in developing countries or low-income countries? And why is that so? So I just don't want to be more than political as I've been already. So I think, we have seen how the world is divided between the global north and the global south. As I've mentioned, one is a recipient, one is a giver. So, and probably that's why it's the case. Thank you.
With that, I'm going to thank the four speakers for their very interesting presentations. And now I'm going to invite the 5 lightning talkers to the stage. And before that, there's another applause. Thank you so much. So just to remind you, these lightning talks are supposed to be 3 minutes maximum. Heather will remind you if you go over time. And I see the first speaker is already here. So it's Alison Calpin from the Pacific Community. And she will talk to us about the indicator guidelines for policy monitoring in the Pacific. So over to you.
And warm Pacific greetings from the Pacific. So consider me your 3-minute break from data, graphs and maps, and you can thank me later. So just going to start with this picture. So this came about when I was in one particular Pacific small island developing state in a planners forum, and the director of planning said, make me a picture that shows my life. And the difficulties. So she's facing a storm of data and statistics, increased collection, but also so many more buckets to fill with indicators. So SDGs, the new agenda for small island developing states, we have a new 2050 regional strategy, all the other global frameworks. And it often means that the National Development Plan gets neglected, and that's the one where the focus should be. That's the national priorities. But all the effort goes on to these commitments that leaders have made. And to be fair as well, as development partners, we often prioritise these buckets on the right, the SDGs and so forth, in our capacity development. So with that in mind, SPC, where I work in collaboration with UNESCAP Asia Pacific, have developed this guidelines document, which again, I was excited for India's presentation on their national indicator framework, because that's one of the goals of these guidelines, is to support Pacific countries or anyone else that wants to adopt them to prioritise a national indicator set, to have that core set that all agencies work towards. Because another difficulty we have, and I'm sure it's not just unique to the Pacific, is that the monitoring frameworks for the annual reporting of line agencies, feeding up to sector plan monitoring, up to the national plan, all those indicator sets are determined in silos. So we don't have a nice flow from the sector level up to the national plan that then matches the SDGs. So part of this guideline is just some practical steps around making indicators comparable across all those reporting levels, and picking up good indicators where they exist. So the SDGs we put up as a good indicator for the most part, but also encourage the contextualisation at the local level. Just with my last 10 seconds, this is just one of the diagrams out of the guidelines to show the steps we would encourage to develop that national indicator framework. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. So next we'll go to Ludger Koppens from UNEP. She will talk about capacity development resources for SDG indicators 841.12.2.1 and 842.12.2.2. Let's push on the button.
So I think to begin with, this is my last meeting, as I will be retiring from the UN end of this year. And so I want you to take note of the two names I put there, which is Ekaterina Polashuk. She's the statistician, and we have Danny Ghaffari, who you probably know, who is very involved in the reporting on all the indicators, our data scientist. So with that, let me quickly, So what we see is that more and more countries have material flow account data sets and indicators in their work plan. And so a global economy-wide MFA manual was developed and is available. It was first published in 2021 and then updated in 2023. And it builds basically on the experience and excellence of the Eurostat accounting guidelines, but with some significant extensions. One is that it presents a modular approach to take into account that there are differing capacities or capabilities in different countries. It also addresses specific issues which have to do with resource extractive economies and subsistence economic activities in certain countries, which you find more in developing countries. And of course, it aims also to make the link to economic and environmental policy questions. Now, the compiler is available whenever countries request it, and it's an internal tool to collect the data from the different data holders in the country with some simple tools in case that some material calculations require a bit more than a simple summation. So we have e-learning courses, first and second are available. The third and the fourth module on material outflows and balancing items is under development and will be available probably in next year. And then finally, we have a global footprint tool that has been developed and that allows countries to calculate their carbon, material, energy, water, or land footprint. And it uses the multi-regional input-output analysis, which was developed. It's included in the footprint tool, and it was developed by the University of Sydney using the IELAB infrastructure for the International Resource Panel. So because it requires a lot of computing capacity, most countries don't have it available, so it's included in the global footprint tool. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now from UNEP, we'll go to UN Habitat. Robert Ndugwa will talk about geospatial data and partnerships. Please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure what happened to the title, but at least this one is not messed up. This one I can understand. I'll talk very quickly about a very important tool. This is called an Earth Observation Toolkit that you can, utilize today to support you in monitoring and reporting on certain SDG indicators, particularly those under SDG 11. And I'll just highlight these: the one for 11.11 on slums and informal settlements, and then the one on 11.31, which is about urban expansions, basically how our cities are growing and how it's been growing for many years. And then 11.71, which is about access to open public spaces. And of course, the genesis was that in the earlier years when these methodologies were developed for SDGs, we didn't have standards, we didn't have processes, but we also didn't have workarounds and easy ways of producing data for these indicators. So what we've been involved in the last couple of years is working with many groups, including the group on Earth observations, many space agencies, including the one from US, including the one from Europe, to standardize, but also ease and provide tools that countries and cities, local government, and practitioners like you can also work with. So today what we have as an Earth Observation Toolkit is basically a one-stop shop where you can go and find all these useful tools. You don't have to rewrite the code to analyze for you data for your own cities in terms of urban expansions. These codes are already available for you for easy download and then easily running that. And then quickly you're able to produce the data for your own cities, not just for one series, but series going back in time and as recent as even 1 year ago or 2 years ago. And of course, this feeds through very latest data sets that are coming in from many different providers of data, but at the same time giving you some sort of freedom for you to play around some research questions if you're from an academic institutions, or if you're from a practitioner, maybe from a ministry or government, you're able to play around with these components. So this tool is available and can work with many of these indicators. By extension, it can also work on many other indicators. The idea is, of course, These are tools that have been contributed to by many practitioners, including UN Habitat, but some also coming in from many academic institutions. So I will leave it at that, but happy to share with you more insights on those tools that are available. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. Now we're gonna hear from Eleanor Gauss-Williams from UNAIDS about tracking the HIV epidemic and response.
Thank you very much. So I represent the Data for Impact department at UNAIDS, and I'll be talking about SDG 3.3, which calls on member states to end the epidemics of AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria, and neglected tropical diseases, and to control hepatitis, waterborne diseases, and other communicable diseases. Specifically, UNAIDS has been measuring progress towards ending the AIDS epidemic by 2030, which is defined as a 90% reduction in new HIV infections and AIDS-related deaths between 2010 and 2030. But as with the rest of the SDGs, a core principle of the AIDS response is to leave no one behind. And so we believe that the AIDS epidemic cannot be ended without the needs of people living with and affected by HIV and the determinants of health and vulnerability being addressed. Our targets and indicators therefore relate directly to the impact of the AIDS response on reducing new HIV infections and deaths, but also to whether people can access quality HIV treatment, prevention, and other social services, to reducing barriers affecting services such as stigma and discrimination, and to fully funding and sustaining the AIDS response in line with a global AIDS strategy. So UNAIDS has been leading a very extensive and a collaborative process of collecting and analyzing data on the HIV epidemiology, on program coverage, on finances, and other information, including, for example, on laws and policies. And some examples are shown in this slide. This information is published on an annual basis for more than 190 countries. And it really helps us to measure progress at a national, a regional, as well as at a global level over time, and where possible, by age, sex, and for key and vulnerable populations. So structures and platforms have been put in place to help countries with the collection, analysis, and reporting of data. For example, a global AIDS monitoring framework was developed and is revised every 5 years in alignment with the UN Political Declaration on HIV and AIDS. It is a collaboration between UNAIDS, WHO, and UNICEF, and indicators are identified with inputs from a range of partners, including topic area experts, UNAIDS co-sponsors, bilateral entities, academics, civil society, and community partners. And at the country level, the reporting is done through a multi-stakeholder process under the leadership of national governments. In addition, with the support of various academic institutions, mathematical models and other tools have been developed and are regularly revised and updated to track progress and trends in the HIV epidemic. We also strengthen capacity through annual training workshops for country partners on the use of these tools and to help countries report on their epidemics and responses, while at the same time ensuring comparability and quality of the results. So information is then published in various reports through country fact sheets, for example, and in various online platforms. So these processes have really helped us to obtain a very clear understanding of the HIV epidemic and response, but it has also helped country programs to reach the right people at the right time and in the right places. And for more information, I invite you to go to unaids.org. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to go to the last lightning talk by Monica Miguel Lago about enhanced monitoring through the family of Copernicus services, SDGs EYES.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Now, having been first time here, now I just feel that I know, because I was in the back. Now I showed you in the front in the previous presentation. So now I'm not nervous anymore, I believe. So what is bringing me here in the second time is really to build on the partnerships. And we realize that we are not doing this in isolation, and we need to build these partnerships. So together with the private sector, the different public sector, and different typologies of communities in the public domain, like the academia, research, and other institutions from the different governments, we are trying to build together all our strengths to better understand how this community could support on the SDGs. This is like we put it as an eyes on the SDGs through into the satellite-derived data. So what we think that is important to realize is that we're still in the bubble. So we needed to go outside the bubble. And this is what I think we started this activity a year ago, and we have a long path to go. But we are bringing different communities. We are bringing on board forest owners. We are bringing fisheries communities. We are bringing epidemiological institutes. So people that is not normally used to the SDG reporting, but we need to bring them on board to better understand what they are doing and if this activity is bringing to them some meanings. So we are looking into three major goals: the climate action, they're looking into the land poverty, the land, and also the water, and we are looking at some specific indicators. The complexity now is that we are looking at, we are in Europe, and in Europe we have Eurostat, we have a different Eurostat code names, and then we have the United Nations, which are not matching one-to-one. So if we take the net greenhouse gas emissions from the land use, land cover, forestry sector, we identify that there is not a similar indicator on the UN level. So therefore, we're trying to make proxies, and these proxies is where we invited also these other communities to see if they are enablement that they should be into account. So from the greenhouse gas emissions from forest fires is what we are looking for now. We are bringing, for instance, the certification, the forestry certification authorities, because at the end of the day, everything is looking about the standards, and they need to bring on board these certification parts for meeting the regulations that I was talking in the previous talk. So this exercise is being done now. We are taking this consideration, but to also keep a look about how we are grading, what are we bringing something new. So we are trying to understand, at least in the Eurostat level, the different grading system. In the UN, we have the 3 tiers level. In the Eurostat, they have this assessment about frequency, timeless, reference area, comparability, coverage time, and comparability. So we need to see where are the red boxes. So we need maybe to improve on that areas. So in the forest emissions, we maybe think that timeless is what is they need to improve. So we are injecting our efforts into that direction. If we go for SDGs on forest cover chains, we see that, for instance, they have a median score on data availability and the methodology. And this is the part that we are blending this in a modular cases. So if there is about a need of an indicator, is if it's a need about a data set, if it's a need of visualization, is that every country will have their own reality. So this is why we think that this modular approach is more efficient, because we are many communities that could be benefit, and we should be supporting the SDGs. So it's these 3 minutes, even more relaxed, still nervous, but if you have questions, you have my contact now, and I will be glad to explain you more about this activity that we are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Monica, for this last lightning talk. And now I think we just have time for 1 or 2 lightning questions.
Hi, I just had a question about the SDGs eyes. On the first slide, the Copernicus was mentioned, and I was just curious about the partnership with Copernicus on this work that you're doing. Thank you.
It's collective second or third question, if there are any others. I see one back there.
My question is for Alison, and really the sort of the challenge that you're naming about very small national statistics offices in the Pacific with very large dispersed populations, and the challenges of trying to manage multiple and competing reporting requirements and frameworks. And just reflecting on the range of tools that have been presented over the last 2 days, which are really quite extraordinary, but I am not sure that navigating across all of those is feasible for most national statistics officers in the Pacific. Some, yes, but many are quite constrained. And so I'm wondering in these conversations here about supporting data and statistical reporting and trying to strengthen that, whether there needs to be more focus on the kinds of challenges for particular groups of countries in these kinds of sessions, so that there is also some thinking around how those things are translated over into very resource constrained settings.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other questions, so I'll give it over to Monica to respond to the first question.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, the Copernicus program is the US-based program. So they have satellite-derived data, but also in situ data. So the way that they are working is they are collaborating with entrusted entities. So they are entrusted entities delivering services, for instance, for maritime services, atmospheric services. So they are different entities. The way that we engage these entrusted entities is to giving us the data. So this data is available to be with the aim to building a new service. They're using all these Copernicus services to fulfill the SDGs reporting and monitoring. So basically the connection is with the entrusted entities. They are also part of this co-design approach. The co-design approach is really understanding the needs of the different communities in a agile cycle. So you are feeding all the time this feedback. And entrusted entities are the ones that are producing this core data. So you need to, for this core data, you need to provide value-added data. So, and this is where these new communities are getting on board to provide and feed with these new data sets. I mentioned about the certification forest authorities. These certification forest authorities are giving to us the methodology for certification. The fisheries communities are the ones, for example, that are providing us the information if they will use this type of data sets for the understanding if there is eutrophication or acidification in their area. So if it's that affecting the coastal water quality, or this affecting the fisher. So this is how we try to build these Copernicus services in the core data set to provide value added.
Thank you, Joe, for your comment and question. Certainly, a lot of the discussion is quite exciting, and we really want to have that in our membership. The disaggregation, the small area estimation, but obviously some of our countries where the total population is less than 15,000 people, it's very hard to do anything beyond the national level. And an issue can be that the focus is on this outward-facing reporting, because we hear the Pacific has no data, so countries want to be seen in these global databases, but that can come at the expense of, like I was saying, their national monitoring. So national plans go unmonitored until it needs to be revised at 5 and 10 years. So there's always a challenge of balancing what reporting can be done and for what purpose. But the countries are very happy to learn from all of these experiences around the world, and indeed are quite excited to lead some of the innovative experiments that are contributing to global capacity development. So, yeah.
So let me thank again all our lightning talkers for these very interesting insights in the different projects. And now I'm going to give over to Kara and or Denise for the last 2 agenda items of the meeting.
Yeah, we are almost finishing our meeting, and we can see now the agenda, item 6, about the United Nations Statistics Commission in the next year, our work plan and the next steps. The next steps by the IAEG-SDGs are the preparation for the UNSC and virtual meetings. We will talk about the implementation of the indicator framework, about data disaggregation, data innovation, non-traditional data sources, data integration, capacity building, sharing of best practices, and methodology review, and continue our work in the subgroups, IAEG-SDG subgroups, and task team on sustainable tourism. The activities from November this year to next year, March, it will be the preparation of the report of the United Nations Statistics Commission in 2025. In November 2024, we will the preparation of the IAEG-SDG report to the next section of the United Nations Statistics Commission. In 6th November, we will have a meeting that we will invite the custodian agencies for further consultations and make the final decision about the new framework, the results of the 2025 comprehensive review. In 20 November, we will have the first draft of the IAEG-SDG report that will be shared with the IAEG-SDG members. At the beginning of the December 3, we will have another monthly meeting to finalize the report to the UN Statistics Commission. The final draft will be submitted in 5th December. The IAEG-SDG meetings, we will have regular virtual closed meetings, as usually we have been doing. We have biannual open meetings in the first quarter. We will conduct a side event during the United Nations Statistics Commission. And in the fourth quarter of the next year. And we will have webinars on special topics, working with countries and the partners. We will decide what themes we will discuss in these webinars. Are so important to share experiences. In relation to the draft work program, we will continue to focus on the implementation of the indicator framework, including the integration of the geospatial information and the statistics, sharing experiences and best practices on monitoring of the SDGs, including on national SDG platforms, dashboards, portals, communication of data for the SDGs, data disaggregation and inclusive data, and data innovations and national efforts in bridging data gaps for the SDG indicators. Encouraging data innovations, including using non-traditional data sources and data integration, and reviewing and making recommendations on capacity building for the SDGs in coordination with the high-level PCCB, focusing on low data coverage indicators. And we will regularly review the methodological developments and issues related to the indicators and their metadata. Refresh the work stream on data disaggregation to provide further guidance to countries and liaise with the other working group and the existing mechanisms for the data disaggregation work. Continue the work of the IAEG-SDG working groups on SDMX and the geospatial information, and review the work plans of the working groups to ensure that they are in line with the work of the IAEG-SDGs. Establish a task team to capture lessons learned from the development and the implementation of the indicators for global development agendas. Continue collaborating with custodian agencies to enhance data flow, process for the global SDG reporting, and improve data coverage for indicators with low data availability. And hold biannual open meetings, including the 16th meeting of the IAEG-SDG in the fourth quarter of 2025, and continue to interact through regular meetings, in general monthly meetings. So thank you very much for your attention. Now we open the floor for questions or comments.
Okay, so we're at the closing. I'd like to invite Arvin up to the stage. Podium, stage, what are we?
Yeah.
And Leva.
There you are. This is not well prepared, but I would very much like to thank, first and foremost, Arvin and the UNDP Global Governance Center for inviting all of you here, my friends, my new friends and colleagues from around the world. It's been a great pleasure to have you in Oslo. But Arvin, Mariana, project manager from UNDP, it's been a great pleasure working with you. Yongi, Heather, making this happen. We had a meeting in Statistics Norway on Monday with the members of the IAEG. And I know Paul is on the behind here in New York. We need to thank him too, because he's doing a lot. Okay, thank you very much. Have a safe travel home. And I really want to see you again in Oslo. So you're welcome anytime. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, well done. We are now done. Thank you to the co-chairs, to the members, to the observers, to the civil society organizations, to everyone in the room. It has been an absolute pleasure and privilege to host this IAEG-SDG interagency and expert groups on sustainable development goals indicators. I have to say, I was thinking yesterday, listening to some of these presentations, what is this akin to? How do I explain this to my children? What am I part of here? And I thought to myself that the best way to explain it, just simply because I am someone with really no skills. I know nothing. I pretend to know everything. I run from one area, one topic to another. I have no in-depth knowledge of just about anything in the world. And then I come to this room, and it's just completely filled to the brim with people who work so diligently, so hard on very specific, difficult, and complex issues. My dear son, it's like watching Britain Has Talent. It's a talent show. Every time someone comes up here, there's a new amazing talent, a new way of seeing things, of deciphering these most complex development puzzles humanity has ever been confronted by. And in a way, let's just reflect on that for a moment, right? Since the ancient Greeks or the Vedas in the Asian continent, or the ancient civilizations on the American continent tried to define human progress, no one has succeeded. What you are doing is that same generational, civilizational challenge, trying to measure human progress. It sounds so simple, but we all know that for millennia, we've never managed to do it well and properly. You are making an earnest, concerted, and coordinated effort to do that. And in fact, the only thing that makes me sad is that not more people care, right? But I have this perhaps reflection that I hopefully think can inspire you a little bit. I mean, at the moment, how does the world look? Well, the world looks like it's in flames. And if your house is in flames, do you go and count the number of dresses you have in your cupboard, or the number of cutleries you have in your kitchen, or do you count when anything is in flames, about to disappear in front of you? Clearly not. Clearly not. So there is a reason why people are not immediately drawn to official statistics at this moment in history. But we also know, since the time of the 17th century, 1648, the Westphalian treaties, the end of the Napoleon Wars in 1815, the massive expansion of international cooperation between 1815 and 1915, the resurgence of international cooperation after the First World War with the Versailles Treaty, and of course the collapse of the League of Nations, but then again another resurgence after the Second World War on the basis of what? The realization that human progress was regressing so fast, so dramatically, that there's a need for international cooperation. That next wave of creation in international cooperation, where does it come from? What does it build on? Well, it has to build on your work. So what you're doing here in this group and beyond, of course, is a very specific task and mandate that the international community has asked you to do. But the broader significance of the methodologies you're developing, the experience you're amassing, is going to be part of building this new world that will come. Francesca is sitting there, and we had this depressing conversation last night about the state of the world. But I'm convinced, Francesca, it will come. And that's why we need this work. We need to count what we have, because otherwise we don't know where we are. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a true pleasure to be able to host this as the UNDP Global Policy Center for Governance. I'll give you one, let's call it topical issue to think about. We work hard on SDG 16 in the center, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. And I'd like you to consider, when you go into that, what's going to be, I think, a 12-hour meeting on the 6th of November, that when you look at SDG 16, SDG 16 is in many ways the most difficult thing to get into the framework, right? And there are many reasons for that. There are political reasons for that, there are technical reasons for that, but there are also, broader reasons for that. But we also need to understand those reasons to make the right decisions for the global framework. We have a universal threshold, or at least that's the aim, of 30% coverage. That is relevant in most cases. I would say be careful of applying that threshold to SDG 16 for the reasons I just mentioned. If we abandon the ambition to measure these extremely complex challenges that are enshrined in SDG 16, we abandon something much, much bigger. So this is not only about data availability, it's about moral commitment. So with those words, I will not stand between you and the exotic streets of Oslo. Thank you so much for your effort, your energy, your presence, and everything you've given to this process. Good luck for the rest of the journey. And I hope we can be of assistance also in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You're not quite let out yet. So that was very inspiring, Arvind, and hard to follow. So we've had a lot over the last 2 days and 3 days for the members, a lot of information. We can see that there's really important work being done, and significant progress is being made on the measurement of SDGs. Sadly, not so much on the achievement of the SDGs. But I'd like to thank each and every presenter that came here over the last 2 days. I think this is the most information I've seen shared ever at an IAEG meeting. And the format, including the lightning talk presentations, I think it worked really well. I want to shout out specifically to Agnes, the member from Denmark, leading us in a few minutes of chair yoga. That is a first for the IAEG. I think it is a fantastic practice. That reminds us we are all human and we all need movement. Coming together here to hear the experiences was really heartwarming and heartening. And I hope you all took notes and names, and we'll reach out to the presenters to get further information. We've shown where we are in the comprehensive review and how the IAEG considers the proposals. And you have also seen that the November 6th 12-hour meeting that will take place, we will finalize, we'll bring together the custodians, agencies to provide more information, and then we can finalize and complete the report for the 56th Commission in late February. But specifically, I would like to thank Statistics Norway, my dear friend Liv, Geir, Sarah, Lass, and Jan, and I'm sorry for pronunciation. Thank you for hosting us on Monday and for your help. UNDP, the Global Policy Center for Governance, Arvin, Alex, Mariana, Fatma, and I apologize if I've missed any names. On behalf of all the IAEG members, thank you for hosting us in such a wonderful way. We have been warmly welcomed by all of you, and you have facilitated our meetings and our work in a very meaningful way. I also want to thank UNSD, Yongi Min, Heather Page, who acted as the secretariat, and might I add, Heather is a wonderful timekeeper. Howie, I'm not sure if you're around here. Thank you for your energy that you bring to this meeting. And thanks, of course, to Paul and the team back in New York who are behind the scenes helping to run things as well. To my beautiful co-chair, Denise. She is always so well prepared and provides calm to my chaos. So thank you for that. Thank you to all of you for believing in the agenda, coming together to provide meaningful dialogue related to the measurement of SDGs. And because we know without measures, we can't have progress. Tomorrow is UN Day. Perhaps it is fitting that this group met this week, so hug a UN person. And if you're not going to see one tomorrow, hug one on your way out. And I'm going to make a personal comment because I still have the microphone. I have been with this group since the beginning and co-chair for a few years now, and my time as co-chair will be coming to an end, and they won't give me the microphone. We spoke at the break, a few of us had been since the beginning, and how overwhelmed we were and unprepared for this journey. But look where we've come. The fact that we were able to put together a global framework within 1 year is actually amazing. We came together and we did it, and we continue to improve it. For me personally, this has been a pivotal experience in my life, and I'd like to personally thank you all. And with that, I will say safe travels to wherever you are in the world, and I wish you all the best. Be well.
I think I would like to repeat the thanks. And the first, because I don't think we can thank them enough. The UNDP Global Policy Center for Governance, I probably will not repeat the name because I definitely will miss someone in addition to the Kara mentioned. I think there's also calm people behind the scene. And the colleague of Statistics Norway, and you hosted the fantastic member meeting. And I also would like to thank the governance of Japan that found many of the participants to this meeting. So really appreciate the support. And the same as my UNSD colleague, there's a lot of still in New York to provide a lot of the support. So I want to mention the presentation and recording available online. So if you just search the 15th IAEG meeting, as yesterday's recording and the presentation are already available. It's very thanks to Paul and Zay to put them together, and also the web team. And also, so tomorrow you will find out everything will be available online. So. And I would like to thank the IAEG members who work with us and in this, and all the participants. So we really want to create this as a space and a platform and to share knowledge. So that's why we experience this lightning talk and the different formats and to facilitate the exchange of knowledge and also partnership. I know some of the partnership have been formulated through these meetings, so we want to encourage this. But we also welcome new ideas and suggestions, so how we can improve our work. So this time we introduce a new element on the yoga. So if you have any idea, just come to us, and we're very open to any of the idea. So looking forward, so this year our main focus will be the 2025 compensatory review. So after March, well, if this commission adopt, and I think the group will focus on how the implementations. So we will reach out a lot of you, as Kara mentioned, on the different part of work on data disaggregation, inclusive data, on data innovation. So we will try to build the knowledge. And yeah, I think with that, I would really appreciate Kara. We will be sad to see you leave because you have been with us from the very beginning, and under your guidance, we have been working really smoothly and throughout this process. Really appreciate it. I know you don't want to stay with us, but we want to keep you. But thank you so much. Yeah. Everyone's so beautiful.